I'm Jason, 24, and I guess you could say I'm the responsible one in the family, though lately, I've started to realize that's just code for the one we can dump everything on. Growing up with two younger brothers, Dylan, 22, and Connor, 19, I always got the example setter speech. My dad used to say it like it was some badge of honor. You're the oldest, Jason. That means you lead by example. What it really meant was that I'd get in trouble first, do more chores, give up my weekends to help around the house, and always be the one to smooth things over when the younger two messed up. But I didn't mind, not at first anyway. It was just family, right? Things started shifting after Mom passed away 2 years ago. Suddenly, Dad wasn't the same. He was angrier, quicker to snap, and weirdly obsessed with keeping things balanced, though his idea of balance looked a lot like Jason carries the weight so no one else has to. I kept telling myself he was grieving in his own way, that I needed to be patient. And for a while, I was. I paid for groceries, helped Dylan with his college tuition application, and even drove Connor to and from work while he saved for a car he never actually bought. I was working full-time in IT by then and still doing night classes, so it wasn't easy. But again, family. The real mess started around the time I mentioned I wanted to move out. I had saved enough, found a decent place not too far from work, and figured it was time. I wasn't abandoning anyone, I just needed space. Independence. I brought it up at dinner one night. The reaction was not what I expected. You're what? Dad said, pausing mid-chew. Moving out, I repeated. I found an apartment, decent rent, near my job. I'll be handling everything myself, don't worry. Dylan looked up from his phone, barely interested. Connor just shrugged. But Dad? He looked like I told him I'd sold the house out from under him. You're not going anywhere, he said. Dad, I'm 24. It's not like I'm running off to another state. I'll be 15 minutes away. He dropped his fork and leaned back. And who's going to help out around here when you're gone? There it was. Not, we'll miss you, or good for you. Just pure, unfiltered expectation. I've been helping for years. You still have Dylan and Connor. Don't compare yourself to them, he snapped. They're not ready. You are. I didn't say it, but I was thinking it. Maybe they're not ready because you never expected anything from them. The conversation spiraled from there. Every time I brought up moving, he found a new reason it was selfish, bad timing, or disrespectful to your mother's memory. That one stung. I backed off for a few weeks after that. But the resentment? It built. Quietly. Patiently. What finally pushed things over the edge was the rent conversation. We were all sitting in the living room. Bills had come in, and Dad was doing what he always did, grumbling about rising costs and how none of us appreciated how hard he worked to keep the lights on. I stayed quiet until he turned to me. I think it's only fair, he said, that you start contributing more. I blinked. I already cover half the utilities and part of the grocery bill. Your brothers don't earn what you do, he said. You've got a full-time job. It's only right you pay more. How much more? 50% more. I laughed. Not the amused kind, more the shocked. Did you seriously just say that kind? You're raising my share by 50%? Just mine. He nodded like it was a perfectly reasonable ask. It's only fair. Why is it fair to punish me for being responsible? You're not being punished. You're helping. I stood up. I've been helping. For years. But I'm not going to bankroll this house just because Dylan won't get a job and Connor spends more time gaming than studying. He gave me that look, the disappointed, fatherly stare that used to make me feel like I just wrecked the car. But this time, I didn't flinch. I'm not paying that, I said. I'll pass. He scoffed. You don't get to just opt out, Jason. That's not how this works. I pulled out my phone, opened the photos, and held it up. A nice shot of my new apartment, clean, unfurnished, and most importantly, empty. I already signed the lease. His jaw clenched. You made this decision without us? I made this decision for me. I moved out 2 days later. At first, it was eerily quiet. I kept waiting for someone to call me up, accuse me of betraying the family, or beg me to come back. But they didn't. Instead, I got passive-aggressive texts. Water bills higher without your help. Connor's job interview fell through. Dylan's car broke down, but I guess he'll Uber since you're not around. I ignored them. And honestly, it felt good. My apartment was tiny, but it was mine. I set my own schedule, cooked my own meals, and for the first time in years, didn't feel like someone's default backup plan. I got more sleep, focused better at work, even started painting again, something I hadn't done since Mom died. But 3 months later, right when I thought the dust had settled, the text started changing. Hey, can you come by? Lights are acting up. Any chance you could help out this month? Money's tight. We might have missed a payment or two. Power companies threatening to cut service. Then came the kicker. We need you to move back, just for a little while. It's not the same without you. I stared at that message for a long time. Not because I was tempted, but because it took everything in me not to laugh. That same night, I got a call from Dylan. He never called. Hey. So Dad's kind of freaking out. The power went out. I raised an eyebrow, even though he couldn't see me. Sounds rough. Yeah. He said if you just paid the extra like he asked, this wouldn't have happened. Or maybe if everyone chipped in instead of sitting around waiting for me to solve things? Silence. I'm not coming back, Dylan. There was a pause, then a sigh. I figured. Just thought I'd try. He hung up without saying goodbye. And for a moment, I felt a twinge of guilt. Not because I was wrong, but because for so long, I let them believe I'd always come running. But not this time. Not when I finally had peace. Not when I finally had something to lose. And just when I thought that was the end of it, something happened that I didn't see coming. Something that made me stop everything and wonder if I'd made a huge mistake walking away. A week after Dylan's call, things went quiet again. Too quiet. No texts. No passive-aggressive guilt trips. Not even a late night, "Can you help us with rent?" from Connor, which had become oddly routine. At first, I enjoyed the silence. It felt like I'd finally gotten through to them, like they realized I wasn't their emergency backup anymore. But then a call came in. Not from Dad, not from my brothers. This time, it was from Aunt Rachel. Now, Aunt Rachel was my mom's sister, and she'd always been the one sane adult in the family. She never really took sides, but she always had a soft spot for me. Growing up, she'd slip me $20 for snacks every time we visited her, and she was the only one who actually showed up to my college graduation. When her name popped up on my screen, I hesitated. Something told me this wasn't going to be a friendly catch-up. I answered anyway. "Hey, Aunt Rachel." "Jason." Her voice was quiet, but urgent. "Have you talked to your dad recently?" "Not in weeks." "Why?" She sighed. "I went by the house this morning. It's not good." My stomach tensed. "What happened?" "Well, for one, the power's still out. They've been living off canned soup and flashlights. The fridge smells like something died in it. Dylan's sleeping on the couch because his room is filled with boxes of old stuff your dad never got around to clearing out, and Connor's missed work because his cars broke down. Apparently, your dad's been taking it out on both of them." I closed my eyes and leaned back in my chair. That sounds like exactly what I expected. She paused. "He's been saying some pretty wild things. That you abandoned the family. That you're off living the high life while he's stuck cleaning up your mess." "My mess?" I asked, laughing bitterly. "I'm the one who held that house together for 2 years after Mom passed. I cooked, cleaned, paid bills, babysat grown men, and when I finally left, I was told I was being selfish." "I know," she said gently. "I'm not calling to ask you to go back. But I am calling to tell you that something's not right. Your dad, he's unraveling." I sat there, unsure how to respond. Part of me wanted to ignore it. This was the same man who'd told me I owed him more than my brothers because I could handle it. The same man who watched me break my back for the family and called it doing your part. But another part of me, smaller now, but still there, couldn't help but remember the better times. The times he coached my soccer team, built a treehouse for us in the backyard, held me after I cried myself to sleep the night Mom died. "I don't know what you want me to do," I finally said. "Just be careful." "I think he's angry. Really angry. But he's not angry at you. He's angry that you proved him wrong." I thanked her for the call, promised to stay safe, and hung up. But her words echoed in my head for days. "He's angry that you proved him wrong." That one hit deep. Because it was true. Dad had built this whole narrative around me being the reliable one. The fixer. The permanent resident who would always be there no matter how unfair the terms were. And the second I stepped outside that story, it all collapsed. A few days later, I got a knock on my door. It was nearly midnight, and I wasn't expecting anyone. My heart jumped as I approached. I looked through the peephole and felt my stomach drop. It was Connor. He looked wrecked, hair disheveled, eyes puffy, a hoodie that looked like it hadn't been washed in weeks. I hesitated, then unlocked the door and opened it just enough to speak. "Connor." He rubbed his eyes and shifted his weight awkwardly. "Hey, what are you doing here?" It's the middle of the night. I didn't know where else to go. There was something in his voice that pulled at me, a kind of quiet desperation. I opened the door wider and stepped aside. He walked in slowly, like every step took effort. I didn't offer him a drink or a seat. I just stood there, waiting for him to speak. He finally sat down on the edge of my couch and looked up at me. "Dad's lost it, man." I said nothing, just folded my arms and waited. "He's yelling all the time. Blames me and Dylan for everything. Keeps saying if you hadn't left, things would be fine. He won't let us touch the savings, even though we need it. Keeps saying we have to learn responsibility the hard way. Dylan bailed 2 nights ago when his stay with his girlfriend. I didn't even know he was dating someone. And you came here because I couldn't take it anymore." He stared at the floor. "I know I didn't pull my weight. I messed around. Took advantage. I get it. But you're the only one who ever actually cared about the rest of us. I thought if I came here, I don't know. Maybe you'd talk to him. Or at least tell me what to do." I was quiet for a long time. Then I sat across from him, elbows on my knees, staring him in the eye. "Do you know what it felt like to be told I owed more just because I didn't mess up as much as you and Dylan?" He nodded, slowly. "Do you know how hard it was to leave without feeling like I was abandoning the people I spent years cleaning up after? I didn't. I didn't see it then. But I do now. I didn't say anything." He pulled his head tighter. "You think I'm a coward for leaving?" "No," I said. "I think you finally woke up." He let out a shaky breath, like he'd been holding it the whole time. That night, he crashed on my couch. I gave him a blanket and didn't ask questions. I didn't even sleep much. I just sat there in the dark, trying to figure out how things had gotten this bad, and whether any of it could still be fixed. But what I didn't know, what none of us knew, was that while Connor was sleeping on my couch, Dad was making a decision. A big one. And when I found out what he'd done the next morning, everything changed. The next morning started like any other, except for the fact that I had my younger brother passed out on the couch and 100 questions buzzing in my head. I got up early, quietly made some coffee, and stared out the kitchen window at the city waking up, pretending for just a minute that everything was normal. That I hadn't just heard that my father had gone completely off the rails. That I hadn't just become the reluctant shelter for the sibling who used to roll his eyes every time I asked for help with dishes. But normal was long gone. Connor woke up around 9. He sat up groggily, looked around like he wasn't sure where he was, and then rubbed his face. I wasn't dreaming, was I? "Nope," I said, handing him a mug. "Still in my apartment. Still power. Still peace." He took the coffee and gave a weak smile. I forgot what that felt like. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. I thought that day would be quiet. Maybe we'd talk. Maybe he'd head out and figure things out on his own. But instead, I got the call that cracked everything wide open. It was from the property management office that handled the house Dad owned. "Hi, is this Jason Adams?" the woman asked. "Yes. I'm calling about the home on Maple Street. Your father listed it for sale this morning." I blinked. "I'm sorry. What?" "He said we should contact you because you'd want to know. I thought maybe you were part of the ownership. It's unusual for us to get a sale notice like this without the other tenants being made aware." I nearly dropped the phone. "Wait, my brothers live there. And it's not a rental, it's our family home." "Well, yes," she said gently. "But your father is the sole owner on the deed. He came in personally, signed the papers, and said he wanted to get rid of it before the month was over. Cash buyers only. Quick close. Cash buyers. Quick close. That's not a sale. That's a fire escape." I hung up, my heart racing, and turned to Connor, who was sitting up straight now, sensing something was wrong. "What is it?" I told him, word for word. Watch his face drain as he absorbed it. "He's selling the house," he said, voice hollow. "Today. Wants it done before the month ends." Connor stood, pacing. He didn't say anything. Not one word. He just kept going on about how I had let the family down. How Dylan had abandoned him. He acted like the victim. I clenched my jaw. "He wants out. This isn't about teaching you guys a lesson. It's about cutting ties." Connor looked like he was about to be sick. "What's going to happen to all our stuff?" "My computer, Dylan's guitar, Mom's old photo albums, gone," I said. "Unless we do something. Fast." We spent the rest of the morning calling Dylan, who didn't pick up until the third attempt. He sounded groggy and annoyed, clearly not expecting to hear from either of us. "What?" he muttered. "Dad's selling the house," I said. Pause. "What are you talking about?" "We got the call this morning. He signed the paperwork. If we don't clear our stuff out, it's going to be gone." Another pause. "Are you serious?" Connor snatched the phone. "Yes, Dylan. He didn't even tell us. He just went behind everyone's back. If we don't get over there, it's all gone." "I'll be there in an hour," Dylan said, voice suddenly sharp. "Don't touch my amp." We all met at the house that afternoon. Pulling up to the curb felt like returning to a battlefield after you've already made peace with never seeing it again. It looked the same from the outside. White paint a little chipped, front lawn a mess. But stepping inside, it felt hollow. The lights were off, obviously. The air was stuffy, like it hadn't been ventilated in weeks. A few boxes were stacked near the front door, as if Dad had already started packing up what he cared about. The rest? Just scattered. Forgotten. The weirdest part? Dad wasn't there. We called his phone. Straight to voicemail. No note. No message. Just his absence hanging in the air like a ghost. Connor went in his room. Dylan went to his, and I headed straight to the attic. That's where Mom's photo albums were stored. She used to keep everything: birthday cards, school drawings, newspaper clippings. She'd said once that memories were the only things that don't lose value. I wasn't about to let Dad toss that out for a quick cash sale. As I dug through the boxes, I found something else. A folder. It wasn't labeled, but inside were several crumpled documents. Bank statements, loan applications, past due notices. And then, tucked between two old manila envelopes, was a final notice from the IRS, dated 3 months ago. I stared at it for a long time. Debt. Not a little. A lot. Tens of thousands in unpaid taxes. That's why he wanted me to pay more. That's why he went quiet after I left. That's why he's selling the house. I sat down slowly, the realization crashing down like a tidal wave. Dad wasn't just being unfair. He was drowning, and he was trying to make it look like we were the reason the ship went under. I walked down the stairs holding the folder and met Dylan and Connor in the hallway. They saw the look on my face before I even said anything. "We were never the problem," I said, holding out the papers. Connor took them and flipped through, his eyes widening. "Holy, he's buried." Dylan looked at the ceiling like he was trying not to scream. "So what? This whole time he was blaming us while hiding this?" I nodded. He was going to let the house go under. Let our stuff get cleared out. Let the family fall apart just to avoid admitting he'd messed up. And then Connor, still staring at the documents, said something that chilled me to the bone. "What if this isn't just a sale?" he whispered. "What if he's planning to disappear?" I didn't say anything, because deep down, I was wondering the exact same thing. And as the sun started to set over the house that once held everything we loved, I realized something. This wasn't over. I stayed up that night in my apartment, the IRS folder on my kitchen table, and my thoughts circling like vultures. Connor had crashed again on the couch. Dylan had gone back to his girlfriend's place with a box of his things and a look I hadn't seen on his face since Mom's funeral. Not anger. Not sadness. Disgust. I didn't sleep. I was angry, sure. Furious, even. But not in the impulsive way. This was colder. He'd used me. Used all of us. Lied. Manipulated. And worst of all, he hid it until the last second. And when the ship started sinking, he tried to throw us overboard and paddle away like the captain of some noble sacrifice. I'm not a doormat. Never was. I stuck around because I thought I had to. Because I thought it was love, or loyalty, or responsibility. But it was fear. Fear of what would happen if I stopped playing my role. And now that I had, he ran. The next morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. I called our family lawyer. Mr. Jennings was old school. Had been our legal guy since I was a kid and helped Mom with the will. I told him what I found: the IRS notices, the quiet house sale, the missing parent. He agreed to meet me that afternoon. When I showed him the folder, he didn't look surprised. I wondered when this would catch up to him, he muttered, flipping through the notices. "You boys didn't know?" "Not a word," I said. He kept us in the dark and tried to pin it all on me when I left. Then he listed the house and vanished. Jennings gave a low whistle. "He's lucky you're not pressing fraud charges." That got my attention. Fraud. He looked at me over his glasses. "Jason, you told me he came into the office and said the house was vacant. That there were no tenants. That's perjury. If you didn't disclose your brothers still had property in the home, or that they were living there part-time, that's grounds for contesting the sale." I leaned back. "So what can we do?" "I'll file an emergency injunction to freeze the sale. If he sold it under false pretense, we can legally halt the process. You'll need to sign an affidavit about your brother's residency, and they will too. If the buyer backs out, which they probably will, once they realize this is messy, you'll buy some time." It was like the fog cleared. We had a way to stop it. I signed what I needed to, called Connor and Dylan, and by the next morning, Jennings had the paperwork in motion. The buyer dropped out the following week. Apparently, Dad hadn't told them about the debt, either. Typical. But freezing the sale wasn't the end of it. I wasn't going to let this man just fade into the sunset with his pockets full of whatever junk he managed to box up. I hired a private investigator. Not out of revenge, out of principle. He was still my father, yes. But he was also a man who abandoned his kids, lied to legal authorities, and tried to throw us under the bus while he bailed. It took less than 2 weeks. They found him in a cheap motel 2 hours out of town, under a different name. He drained the last of his retirement into a cash account and was planning to lay low while the house sold. The PI gave me the report. I stared at it for a long time, then made a decision. I called him. He didn't answer at first, of course, but on the third try, he picked up. His voice was hoarse, like he hadn't spoken to anyone in days. "Jason," he said, carefully. "I didn't waste time. I know where you are." Silence. "I know what you did. I know you lied about the house. I know you emptied your accounts. I know you were trying to disappear." More silence. Then, like a reflex, he tried the guilt trip. "You don't understand what it's been like. I lost your mother. I lost everything. No," I cut in. "You lost yourself. And then you tried to take us down with you. I didn't mean. You knew what you were doing. You didn't ask for help. You made demands. You made me feel like I owed you. You tried to make me the villain for stepping away from a collapsing house that you set on fire." He sighed. "What do you want from me?" I didn't hesitate. "Accountability." He laughed bitterly. "You want me to apologize?" "No. I want you to fix what you broke. You owe back taxes? Deal with them. You listed a home full of your kids' belongings? Reverse it. You disappear again, I will press charges. Fraud. Negligence. Whatever sticks. I don't have anything left, Jason." "Good. Maybe now you'll finally understand what it felt like to be used." I ended the call. It was over. Connor stayed with me for a couple more weeks, then found a job and moved in with a friend. Dylan went no contact with Dad and poured himself into work and music. We still talk, more now than we ever did under the same roof. The house? We cleaned it out, one room at a time. I found more of Mom's things in the attic, old letters, a journal. She wrote about each of us, how proud she was, how much she hoped we'd take care of one another when she was gone. We did, Mom. Eventually. Dad never came back. Last I heard, he was couch surfing with an old army buddy, slowly getting back on his feet. I didn't chase him, didn't fight him, didn't need to, because this time, I wasn't the one cleaning up the mess. And for the first time in years, I could finally breathe.